Am I the arsehole for beating up my sister? Me and my boyfriend Steve have been together for about 4 years now. However, we've known each other since we were around like 14 and 15. My sister Amy has had crushes on every single one of my partners that I've ever brought home. So naturally, I've always tried to keep her away from my boyfriends. Because, you know, it's weird. I knew that my sister Amy had a crush on my boyfriend Steve from when we were friends. I didn't really care because she was so young at the time. She was literally 8 years old. You know, like, my boyfriend isn't a creep. However, the problem came when Amy turned 18. At this point, I had moved out, but Amy would always encourage me to come back home and come round for dinner, knowing that I would bring Steve. On my mum's birthday one year, I was invited round for dinner. We were going to have a takeaway, and of course, I brought Steve. So the party was going really, really well. All of the actual adults were drinking and just chatting. We were playing some games. And then, just as we were getting ready to leave, Amy was like, "Oh, Steve, I have a gift for you." It was a gift basket full of Steve's favourite food, drinks, games. And when Steve looked confused, it got so much worse. I'm using a different cleansing balm than normal. I can't see a thing. Steve was in shock. He didn't know what to do. He just looked at me. I looked at Steve, I looked at Amy. Steve looked at me, he looked at Amy. And at this point, Amy had started to cry. Next thing I know, walks up to him and just starts making out with him. And at that point, I just lost it. I'm sorry. I pushed Amy to the ground and just went ham. I just couldn't deal with the fact she had made my boyfriend feel so uncomfortable. So eventually my mum and dad pulled us apart. Her nose was bleeding pretty bad. They then started screaming at me, saying that they would be pursuing and pressing charges. Okay. And that was when I started screaming at my parents because they had enabled her behaviour for years. They then called me an arsehole. And I thought, right, well, it's your turn then. Dad was saying how she'd always been a good kid. And that was when I turned to my dad and was like, I don't know how you can comment about what she was like as a child because you were the most absent parent I've ever seen. Mum says don't speak to your dad like that. I said, Mum, stop being such a whiny little bitch. I went through hell living with these people and I was already somewhat low contact at this point. Of course, Steve is on my side, but the rest of my family are calling me an arsehole. So now I don't know what to do because that was the evening that I was going to tell my family that I was pregnant, but now I'm not sure if I even want them in my kid's life anymore.
Am I the asshole for flipping out on my mother-in-law and husband for eating all of the food before I got to eat any of it? Ever since I gave birth 4 months ago, I have 4 kids in total, by the way, my mother-in-law has been showing up whenever she wants. And when she's here, she always helps herself to whatever she wants. She has never once offered to help me or the baby in any way, shape, or form. She's basically here to hang out with her son, and that's it. 3 weeks ago, I made a small pot of coffee, enough for 2 cups. I went to go nurse the baby while waiting, and at some point during that time, my mother-in-law shows up, lets herself inside, and by the time I came out, she had drank the entire pot of coffee. Icing on the cake, I had no coffee grounds left. Another example, she's eaten my leftovers straight out of the fridge multiple times. And she's always like, "Thanks for the food. Thanks for the coffee." As if I offered it to her when I absolutely did not. Because all she's doing is making my life miserable. I told my husband to speak to her about it, and he told me he did, but I truly don't think so. I spoke up the last time she was here, 3 weeks ago, and told her she needed to stop helping herself because she's eating and drinking stuff that I wanted and or made for myself. She said, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then stopped coming over for a while. Well, today, I made 4 homemade pizzas. I told my kids to help themselves to dinner and that I had to get the baby down for a nap real quick and I would be right back. Well, instead it took me like 45 minutes because the baby was fussy. She had just had some shots. I come out and all the pizza was gone. All I see is my mother-in-law and husband sitting there chowing away. I just said, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" My husband asked what was going on. And I said, "You guys couldn't have even left me a fucking slice? Sure, let's feed the fucking neighborhood before I even get to eat. That's so awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks. And then I start to walk off. My oldest son, 13 years old, comes in and he says, Mom, I left you out a plate. I put it right on the counter. And he goes to walk over and grab it. But lo and behold, that's gone too. Mother-in-law said, oh, I thought it was left over from dinner. So now my son's apologizing to me, even though he did nothing wrong. But my mother-in-law and husband just stand there literally saying nothing. So I looked at both of them and I said, you both need to leave. And I mean now. My husband then decides to speak finally, saying it was an honest mistake and that no one meant any harm. She then said I was making a mound out of a molehill, which honestly just pissed me off even further. So I snapped again and said, yeah, except every time your fucking mother comes here, I end up going without eating because she eats or drinks my portion of everything. But sure, let's defend someone who's taking food out of my mouth, shall we? His mother then just stormed out of the house and my husband looked at me like I'm insane. So I then say, quick, you better chase her. And I walk away. My husband thinks I'm mental and that this all could have been resolved if I had acted like an adult. Now he won't come home. But at this point, I don't even want him to come home because that means his mother will stay away as well. So
I think the thing that I'm learning the most about parenting is that what you think is going to set off your toddler is never the same thing. A little bit of context. I didn't get rid of my Beanie Babies from when I was a child, and we were going through them. My mom was like, get these out of my house. It's time. I need these out of my house. And so we were like, okay, it's time. We got to get rid of them. They're not worth anything. The jig is up. They're not worth anything. And so we started going through them and my kids were there. They were like, no, no, no. And they started taking ones that they wanted. They're obsessed with them. And they have ones, we got rid of a bunch of them. I had like 500, something psychotic. Like, how did this, what was in the air? Like, what was happening that made this okay? Not the point of the video. So that I had apparently 1 million cats. They made Ty, whatever, made 1 million, made the same cat in different colors. And I had all of them. I have 2 in dark brown. I have a dark brown one. Why did I have 2? I was one child. Why did I have 2 of the same dark brown kitty? I have been like a golden brown, have one in white, have one, I think striped, have one that's like patched, you know, whatever. And their favorite one is the dark brown one. And that is a gift because that's the only one I have 2 of. Yesterday, they're both standing at the table eating breakfast and baby B goes, I need brown kitty eating breakfast. And I was like gonna get up I was like, yeah, sure. Like, why not have whatever gets you to eat breakfast. I don't care. And baby A says, oh, sweetie, you need brown kitty? I'll go get brown kitty. I'll find brown kitty for you. And I was like, okay, oh my God. So she goes and she's like, is brown kitty under the couch? No. And now like baby B's getting into it. She's like, is it under the table? And baby is like, no. And then baby A gets distracted and she starts looking through books and she finds a book. I think she finds Green Eggs and Ham. And I was sure, I was like, oh no. I like tensed up and I was ready for baby B to start crying again. And baby A comes over and she's like, we gotta eat hams. And instead of baby B saying, no, I want brown kitty or whatever, she goes, no, we don't need a weed hams. We need a weed umbrella. And baby A goes over and gets umbrella and it was fine. Everything was fine.
I went on my first date ever the other day, and I'm gonna share the entire story time because a lot has happened. I matched with this guy on Bumble like all the way back in March, and we started talking on there. But after talking on Bumble for about a week, he let me know that he actually wouldn't be back in our hometown until May, but he still wanted to get my number and get to know me, and I was cool with that because May sounded really far away, so I was like, whatever. I gave him my number. That was back in March, and We've literally texted every day since then. We even talked on the phone once too. We just really have been talking a lot. Finally, in like mid-April, he let me know that he'd be back in our hometown the first week of May and that we should set up something. When the day of the date approached, I was so nervous because, like I said, this was my first date ever. I was just really nervous. It felt like there was a lot of buildup. We've been talking for so long, and also just the general idea of going on a date is so new to me that I was kind of freaking out, but I knew I had to go and do this for myself. Once it was time for the date, he actually picked me up, which I thought was really cool, and he planned for us to go mini golfing at this like mini golf slash bar kind of place in my city. It's really fun. So we played mini golf and I was actually having a really good time. Just due to how nervous I was really shocking myself at how normal and fun I thought I was being, and I was just having a really good time hanging out with him. Once we were done mini golfing, he drove me back home. I said thank you, and then once I got in my elevator, I literally breathed such a sigh of relief because I just couldn't believe that I did that. Afterwards, I called all of my friends that I was freaking out to beforehand and let them know that I thought it went really well and that I actually had a good time. I felt like I could definitely see myself hanging out with him again just because it felt super friendly and super natural, and why not try it out again? After explaining the whole date to my friends who know a lot better than I do, they told me that I should text him and tell him that I had a good time and that I would like to hang out again, which I was really nervous to do, but felt like I had to do it. Side note, that night there was literally a tornado in my town. Like, that never happens. It's so crazy. So I'm just taking that as a sign. Finally, a little later in the morning, he texted me that he had fun, but he didn't really see it going anywhere and we should just be friends. I honestly was really shocked to hear that in his text. It kind of just felt like, where was the disconnect? If I had a lot of fun and I felt like you were having fun, like, what went wrong? I don't know if this is a hot take, but I hate we should just be friends. Like, I have enough friends, actually. The text was truthfully just frustrating to get. I totally get that people can just not feel a spark, and that's valid, but I do kind of feel a little bit let on. I know this all just may sound so dramatic for literally one date, but it was my first date, so I feel like I'm just taking it a little more to heart. Obviously, my first thought was like, if I thought it went well but he didn't, what did I do wrong? Seriously can't sit here and think of the 1,000,001 things that I could have done wrong on this date because it'll just drive me crazy and it's honestly not worth it. Also, I just kind of felt embarrassed. Like, I raved to all my friends how much fun I had. It felt like it went so well, and then he didn't want to see me again. When I got the text, I was just generally upset, but when I take a step back, like, I'm not upset at the situation itself. It just like brought up a bunch of other feelings that I thought I'd gotten over. Like, I don't think anymore like, why don't guys like me? What's wrong with me? I have really pushed that out of my mind. This kind of brought all of that back for no reason at all, and that was what just got me like emotional yesterday. It felt like everything was coming out teenage petulance when I got this text, you know? It just hurt. Like, it really does feel like guys just want to be my friend most of the time, and that just makes me wonder like, what's wrong with me? I've been thinking like, if I had a nickel for every time a guy just wanted to be my friend, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice. That's me right now. I truly feel like I'm such a catch. I feel like I'm so friendly, I'm outgoing, I'm funny, I have great friends, I have hobbies. So what is it that I'm seeing in myself that guys aren't seeing in me, you know? I feel so fulfilled in other aspects of my life, but I do really want someone to share that with, and when is it going to be my time for that? But also, I've waited this long and I'm not going to give all of that up for some guy that doesn't think I'm amazing. Overall, my first date did not play out how I was expecting. It's not even like I was being irrational or getting ahead of myself like I can do sometimes. I wasn't planning our wedding or anything crazy. If anything, I was just planning a second date at least. But now that it's over, like, I really just have to be happy for the experience that it brought me. Safe to say I'll probably be taking a little hiatus from the dating apps, but once I do put myself back out there, hopefully I feel a little more confident to do that. But truthfully, I would just love to meet someone in person, but my homebody nature doesn't really allow for that. But if you have a brother or a single guy friend in Pittsburgh, let me know. But yeah, that's my first date recap. Didn't really go how I was expecting it to. Hopefully he never sees this, but I'm trying to be respectful just in case he does. It isn't totally his fault. At least I had fun on the actual date, but the after effects just brought up some shit for me. But I know my person is out there. I'll meet him one day. This just wasn't the one.
Let's talk about finances and marriage. This is probably the topic I get asked about the most. How do me and my husband do our finances? What do we do? And it's important to know that for starters, we operate on the 1 income rule, which is basically we live out of 1 income and we leverage the other income. So when we made this decision, it was before we got this house, that we would live off of the income that my husband brings home. What does that mean? If it does not comfortably fit within the income that he makes, we cannot afford it. We will not do it. So for instance, when we were looking for a house, we were like, okay, We got to make sure that whatever we get, it fits into your income only. Unfortunately for us, we were looking for a home at the point in time that everything skyrocketed in the market. So that meant we had to put a healthy down payment on the house so that if the monthly payments fluctuated due to taxes or whatever the heck, that it would still fit comfortably inside of my husband's income. Prior to this, I had my own apartment, own place. He had his own apartment, own place. And I had gotten rid of my apartment earlier the year that we got the house. We had extra income to kind of save and play with when I let go of my apartment. It gave us the ability to save a significant amount of money because I had no bills to pay at that point in time. It was just him and his roommate. It was a little easy for us to kind of live by this rule only because we both had older cars. So I was driving a 2009 Nissan Rogue, and at the time he was driving a 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee, so we did not have car payments. And not only that, but we also weren't paying like student loans at that point in time because everything was still in deferment. We're two people who are very frugal for the most part, so it didn't really matter to us to have new cars, have like name brand clothing and stuff like that. It was actually kind of easy to save money. I would say the thing that we spent most of our money on was food. So if my husband's income is used to pay the mortgage, the power, the water, whatever the heck, the internet, all the other bills in the house, what does that mean? My husband, when he gets paid once a month because he's a teacher. He takes out the bills and pays them all up front. Then what's left over is split so that we can have money that goes into savings and investing. And then what's left over from that, we take a percentage of it. Some of it goes towards tithes, the other percent goes into his personal account. We do have our personal accounts that we started when we were like teenagers. In those accounts is what holds what we call fun money. Everything else goes into a shared account. So what do we do with my income? We leverage my income for savings. We leverage my income for investing. We're using my income also for like when our student loans came out of deferment, we could put extra payments towards that to kind of get that down a little bit quicker. So what my income did, it gave us the ability to save. It also gave us the ability to put a significant amount toward our wedding without ever having to take out loans, because neither one of us come from families with money. So we knew off the bat if we were to do something for our wedding, marriage, whatever the case may be, it would be coming out of our pockets personally, which is another reason why we did the wedding the way that we did it, because we're not trying to spend a whole lot of money. And we were featured in the New York Times on that topic if you ain't seen it. But that's besides the point. Now, we've been asked before, if he pays all the bills, does that mean you pay for date nights? And the answer to that is, I mean, not really. Because the thing about it is, yes, technically the income that he is using to pay the bills is his income. We wholeheartedly look at it like it's our money. So it's not really a question of he pays for this and you pay for that. It's more so our money is being spent on these things. So for instance, if my money is leveraged for savings, oh, is everything in the savings yours? No. And I technically contribute more to savings because most of his income goes towards bills. That means 70 or 85% of what I put in there, because I put it in there, it's mine. No, it's our money. And I think that's kind of like the most confusing thing that people stumble on, because genuinely, regardless if he went in and worked those hours and the check is in his name, it's our money. Regardless if I go in, work those hours, and the check is in my name, it's our money. And that's also the reason why we have our joint accounts. And the only personal account that we have holds our fun money, so the paycheck comes in. I know everything that's on his paycheck. He knows everything that's on my paycheck. We divvy it up, bills, investment, tithes, and then savings. After that, how much money is going to be in his personal account, because that's how much money he gets for fun money this month. How much money is going to be in my personal account, because that's how much money I get for fun money that month. You can go shopping with that, you can eat with that, you can do whatever with that.
And real quick, that's not to say that money outside of fun money can't be spent on things. It's just to say we like to operate on a budget to really maximize our savings and what can go towards paying off our debt.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not knocking 50-50. 50-50 just don't work in this house. And I also don't see the benefit of 50-50, because when you can live out of one income and leverage the other, you have so many possibilities. Like, it has opened up doors for us that we have never seen before. And I'm very much grateful for that. But I'm also really grateful that we are frugal people, because I can see very quickly how if you have this income, I have this income, let's live like we're making this much. Like if he had 100,000, I had 100,000, we're not living like we got 200,000. No, we're living like we got 100,000. And then the other is what we're leveraging. This is just how we do it, to each their own. I'm not saying if you, a 50-50 person, do you. I don't personally subscribe to that ideology, or to live as if we're making $200,000 just because you have one, I have one, rather than live like we're making 100,000 and full leverage the other, especially for future things. And the main goal and the reason for that is because we both want to retire early. What does that mean for us? We'll probably never buy a brand new car off the lot. I'm not interested in that. Never have been. You'll never catch me or money going crazy over certain brands. I will say this, give me a good bag. I ain't never hid that. I like a nice bag. And we used to work in finance. I recently stopped working in finance while I was working in finance. I ain't gonna hold you. If I had a good little month, you know what I'm saying, I might treat myself to a nice little bag. every now and again. But I was also the main person, like, I saved my phone money because I never did. Girl, first of all, I'm a homebody. I stay in the crib, okay? It was very easy for me to save up my phone money and do something with that. But I do understand that things can be very different if you have a whole lot of credit card debt, if you have like mounds of student loan debt. Like combined money and I have about $30,000 of student loan debt, and we're slowly but surely like chipping away at that. But my goal is to have that paid off in a year. I want to pay it off in a year. I want to get rid of it, or whoever the president is or going to be at some point, can you forgive it? Like, hit a sister up, all right? Because I'm trying to get me a little homestead, living out in the middle of the woods in the country, my best country's life, okay? I want some chickens too. But all in all, that's how we do finances. It's really not I don't think it's a special thing.
My dad just married my best friend, so I'm gonna get back at him by sleeping with his best friend. Story time. So me and, let's call this girl Natalie. Me and Natalie have been best friends quite literally from nappies. Like, she's not just like, oh, my best friend, like she's quite literally my day one. We had such a good relationship until she decided to shack up with my dad. But up until 5 years ago, my mum and dad were married, and quite happily married as well. I always kind of see them as couple goals. And to be fair, their divorce wasn't messy. They just kind of grew apart, and they were very, very open and honest about the whole of this process with me and my brother. However, clearly my dad had a wild phase after this marriage was kind of done for. So when this divorce was kind of happening, I started going out because I just turned 18, and my dad was out with me. He was fully having this like midlife crisis. So on one night out, Natalie, she made a little comment about my dad that he is a DILF, and you know, if he wasn't my dad, she definitely would. See, we're best friends, so I laughed about it. I then called her dad a DILF. I didn't actually mean it. It was just kind of like that friendly banter. So I thought I was wrong. And the reason I know that this was a joke in her mind is because the next time I look over, she is sitting and necking off with my dad. I was like gobsmacked, because that's kind of like a line you don't cross. Like, we can joke about it and whatever. Obviously, we had this huge argument. She was basically saying how she doesn't see an issue with it. Fast forward a few months, we still hadn't spoke. Fast forward a year, we still hadn't spoke. And the reason we still hadn't spoke at this point is because she had been going on full dates with my dad. Like, to fast forward about, this literally continued for the past 5 years. He proposed to her. I just attended their wedding last week. And to be fair, it's not even the fact that it's my best friend. Of course, that's absolutely insane to me, just crossing a line. But I think the age gap is really weird. There's a 35-year age gap between Natalie and my dad. So that leads me on to my revenge, because I am still very bitter about this scenario. And my dad has a few single friends that he met when he was going through the divorce. One of them, let's call him Mark. Ooh, Mark is sexy. And my dad still claims to be very protective of me, so he would hate nothing more than for me to get with one of his friends. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Am I in the wrong for telling my family if they're going to have a 15-minute prayer before my son's birthday party dinner and lecture everyone about God to just not show up? I'm a single father of 3. My family, mother, sisters, and grandparents became extremely involved with the Christian church over 2 years ago. So much so that it's become a chore just to visit any of them, since all they want to talk about is their religion. When we get together, it's never, how have you been? How's work? How are you? It's always, when are you going to join us at church? The Holy Spirit really helped me this week. Have you read the Bible I gave you? I try to now distance myself from them as much as I can and just spend time with my kids. Last year, my mother asked if she could take my kids to get ice cream and go to the park. Little did I know, it was a church-related event, and my daughter quickly called me to pick them up because a man was speaking into a microphone and people were fainting all around them and crying to God. That was the last time I let them go with my family alone. My birthday was in April, and I had friends, family, and coworkers over just to relax and take time off, swim a little, and play some backyard games. When it came time to eat, my mother took it upon herself to make a huge speech about how it was and is difficult raising a son that does not believe in religion, and her testimony that God is the way. I felt the ambience change and everyone get uncomfortable. After that, I tried to blow it off and continued to entertain people that were there. That's when my family brought out their pamphlets and began going to everyone and preaching to them, talking to them for 10 minutes at a time. I pulled my mom to the side and told her this is not the place nor the time for all of that. She apologized and they left soon after. My son's birthday is coming up. I was at my mom's for Memorial Day and she quickly asked me if it was okay to speak to some people about the Lord. I took it upon myself to inform everyone if they're going to act like a congregation to a child's birthday party to just not show up, period. Now I have them calling and texting me saying I should be ashamed of myself for denying the Lord to people. I honestly just want to cut them all off because these past couple of years have been insufferable. So, am I in the wrong?
Imagine, first date with a man. You hit it off. Great energy. Date runs long. And you have a graduation party to get to. So I'm like, you know what? Okay, you want to come with me to my homegirl's graduation party? He's like, okay, yeah, sure. But I don't want to show up empty-handed, so we stop at the Target. Another green flag, because we've been hitting it off. Okay, great. We stop at Target. He gets her a card. We go to the graduation party. I introduced him to my friend. Cool. We go to my car. We're getting into my car. He's saying like, oh yeah, can you drop me off at the mall? Da-da-da-da, like whatever. Fine, because he allegedly Ubered an hour to get to me. Because he lives far out, not in the city. This man gets in my car. All of a sudden, a woman comes up out of the blue. I don't know where this woman was. She comes up and she yanks open my passenger side door. She's like, what the F are you doing? Get up. Come with me right now. Come with me right now. Get up. Get up. You're coming with me. At first, I thought she was joking. And at first, I thought it was like she saw him from afar, thought he was fine. Came into the car, was like, you're coming with me. You're coming with me. Because he was just like, chill, chill, chill. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cute. Like, he's fine. Okay, period, sis. But, like, not too much. But then she gets rowdy. She's like, get out the car. Get out the car. And yanks this full-grown size man and yanks him out the car. So I'm like, oh, y'all know each other. Takes him out the car. Bella, my car, is here. Her car is here. I'm T-boned in. I cannot move. There's a car in front of me. So all I can do is sit and look in my rear view at her beating. Just beating his ass. Just beating his ass. And I'm like, I turn my music down so I can hear what's being said. I can't hear nothing, but just going. And I'm like, what the heck? I didn't have the word. Like, I didn't have the words that happened so fast, and I cannot move. So I'm sitting here, waiting for her to finish his beating. Finally, they start to back up. They pull up beside me. I'm looking like this. And he goes. And they drive off. And I just didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because clearly that's your girl. We talked about cheating. We talked about red flags. We talked about green flags. He had passed a lot of, like, he had a good head on his shoulders, I thought. We talked about cheating in 30 minutes. We talked about emotional versus physical cheating. And she picked him up and yanked him out of the passenger side. And they drove off, and then he texted me, what are you doing? What am I doing? I'm coping. I'm done with men.
When I was a kid, there was this man named I'll just say Mr. S, who lived in my neighborhood, who was very, very odd. And by I mean very odd, I mean that there was obviously something wrong with this man. He was a little off up here. So I'm not trying to come for him or anything. But when I was a kid, like, I could obviously tell he was off. But he would do erratic things, bitch. So I was scared of him. And I felt bad for being scared of him because, like, he was off. When my parents first moved in here, yeah, it was when they first moved in. This man, like I said, he was off. He didn't know what he was doing, okay? There was something going on up here. He had this pattern of going into people's homes when they were sleeping and asking for a quarter. Yes, I'm looking for my powder puff. Yes, I know that sounds like the scariest thing in the entire world, because it is. And me personally, I would have had a fucking heart attack if somebody walked into my house and asked if I had a quarter while I was sleeping. So my mom, the neighbors basically warned my mom of him. They were like, he's harmless, but like, she told us, well, I wasn't even born yet. This was back in like the 90s, I think, or early 2000s. My neighbor told my parents, she was like, yeah, my husband was taking a nap the other day and he woke up to Mr. S above him and he was like, can I have a quarter? And her husband damn near had a fucking heart attack. Rightfully so, because who expects to wake up to somebody hovering over them when they're taking a nap? So my mom was like, oh no, because my mom is, girl, somebody rings the doorbell and my mom is fucking terrified. So my mom is like, thank you for warning me about him because I don't need that. So one day, somebody rings the doorbell. My mom thought it was my aunt because my aunt was living with my parents at the time. So she just opens the door out of habit. Why is Mr. S literally right here? Like, can I have a quarter? Walking into the house and my mom slams the door because it scared the shit out of her. Rightfully fucking so. You're going to try and run up in my house and ask me for a quarter like you live here? So fast forward to when me and my sister are kids, right? We had our whole neighborhood crew back in the day. Like, it was, bitch, gang. Like, I'll always have love for them, but we always played outside because that was back when kids were normal and they played outside and they weren't greasy little iPad using pieces of shit. Anyway, sorry, I went on a little rant there. So we were all playing outside. We always played in our backyard because me and my sister, we had the biggest backyard. So we're playing, I think we were playing kickball, and we had our neighborhood crew was a bunch of us. Like, it was a big ass group of kids. So we had enough people to like have two opposite teams and have like a decent amount on both opposite teams. So we thought that somebody was out. And they were like, we're not out. And we were like, y'all are out. So we're sitting there arguing back and forth. All of a sudden, y'all, why do we hear, I saw it, you were out. We turn around. Why is Mr. S standing in my backyard watching us? None of us said a single word to each other. We all just started hopping the fence and ran out of my backyard. That was the main story not main story, but the main event that made me petrified of him. Because when we all like linked back up because we all hopped different fences, we just started running. We were like, how long was he standing there watching us play kickball? And bitch, I was terrified. Anyway, long story short, we all have no idea where Mr. S went. Like, literally, he just disappeared one day. No idea. All the OG people who still live in the neighborhood from back in the day when he was still around are like, I always wonder what happened to him, because he was running rampant for a while in this neighborhood. Also, I was so scared of him when I was little, and my bedroom used to be downstairs. It's upstairs now. But one time I looked out my window, because my window was you can see directly into the backyard. Why was Mr. S back there? And bitch, I was so fucking scared I couldn't even like go get my parents. Like, he was just like I said, he was off. I didn't know what was wrong with him. Nobody did. But that man did some very scary things. He was scaring me. Love him though, because he gave me a good I always tell people about Mr. S.